Okay, well, hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining us for this webinar session. My name is Fernando and I come with the Region 9 Head Start Association. And I'm happy to be your webinar host today. So feel free to contact me via the chat option of Zoom with any logistical questions you may have regarding any audio, video, or connection issues you experience today. Please note that due to the current situation with COVID-19, our webinar platform, Zoom, is experiencing a lot of traffic. So if during this session you experience any lag and or connection issues, we apologize in advance. As the registered attendee, you will have the ability to log out and back in with your credentials. But if you have any questions, feel free to visit our website and contact us and we will do our best to get you back in. This webinar session will be recorded and will be made available for on-demand consumption within 24 hours. You may find the recording as well as other resources tied to this session, such as a certificate of participation, up on our website at www.region9hsa.org/COVID/19. I will share also this link on the chat throughout the session today, as well as a follow-up email will go out to all registered participants within 24 hours of the session. We encourage your participation today, so feel free to send us your questions and or comments via the Q&A option of Zoom, and we will try our very best to answer those questions and address those comments live. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our topic for today: how to provide emotional support for children with challenging behaviors at home and center-based settings, a focus on infants and toddlers. And our speaker today will be Erika Flores from ChildrenFlow. Take it away, Ella.
Thank you so much, Fernando. Thanks. And it's very special to be here with all of you today. There are many of us logging in from different cities, different towns, from different rural areas and suburban areas, and so many of us who have joined here to be together for this hour to really talk and learn together about how do we support our young children who are exhibiting challenging behaviors, especially in a time like right now that we're going through with COVID-19, this global pandemic that we're living as a humanity together, and we're even though we can't physically meet, we are staying very interconnected, and we see how much we actually have in similarity and how much connects us as humans. So I'm glad that we got connected now to talk about young children, to talk about infants and toddlers, and really to talk about how do we give them emotional support, especially in a time like right now, when we're going through so much stress and tension as a global society. And how can families support infants and toddlers at home? How can caregivers, how can early Head Start staff be more prepared to support families and to also support the infants and toddlers once we get back into our programs? So really, these strategies are to be used and implemented and in all of these different scenarios, both at families, home-based programs, center-based programs, or anybody who interacts or has a connection with infants and toddlers. Great, so these are the goals that I've set for this 1 hour that we have together. I've set one goal for us to really try to understand the emotional development of young children, specifically infants and toddlers, and what's the connection between that and challenging behaviors that young children might be exhibiting. We are also going to learn how do we provide support, emotional support, to respond to infants and toddlers who are exhibiting these challenging behaviors. And then we also will learn some strategies to proactively set up a learning environment to support positive behavior in infants and toddlers. We only have an hour together, and I am saving some time towards the end for questions and answers. I will be talking about these terms in a broad way. I think we could spend a full day just talking about each one of these goals and aims, which is a lot of the that's a lot of the training and professional development that I provide. But I'm glad that we have this hour and we will talk about this in broad terms. And I hope that you'll be able to take away really practical strategies that you can apply right away so that we can really support infants and toddlers. All right, so let's get started. So here's a question for us to think about for a few minutes. How can we understand challenging behaviors from the perspective of the young child? And by that I mean, think about things from the child's point of view. So often we spend most of our time, seeing the world through our own eyes, through our own experiences, through our own perspectives, be that we are a caregiver, that we're an early childhood professional, or as a parent, or caregiver. We generally see everything from our perspective. But what if we stopped and paused for a few moments and go, wait, how does the infant perceive the world? How does the toddler perceive the world? How are they interpreting everything that's happening? Especially, what we're going through now through this global pandemic. What are their responses when they see us tense and nervous and anxious and out of routine and out of normality? What's going on in their heads? What's going on in their hearts? What's going on in their bodies? So I really want to invite us to stop and think about that infant or toddler or groups of infants and toddlers that you support. And how would it feel to be 2 years old again? And you're seeing all these adults doing all these things and you don't know what's going on. So I want us to keep that in mind as we go through this webinar today. So we're going to talk about challenging behaviors from two perspectives. From the perspective of the child's essence, the child who the infant and toddler is, and the child's environment. All the factors that affect the child and their challenging behaviors that come from the environment, because there's a very strong interconnection between both. And challenging behaviors are very connected to both. By one side, it's the child, their nature, and then there's the environment, the nurture, the external aspects of it. So let's start talking about the child's essence, who they are. So we know that there are certain characteristics of a child that we are also called temperament. So temperament are these unique individual differences that each person has. And there have been studies that have shown that many of these temperamental traits are actually carried out throughout life, that they're there since we're young, and many of these traits we carry on through our lives. Some of these traits are like our activity level. Like if you really look at some infants are very active and they move a lot and they're like, woo, moving, and they love moving. And then you'll see some infants are like very passive, slow, more taking in what's happening in the world. So some are very active, some are very passive. Another characteristic of temperament can be their intensity to reaction. Like some infants, when they need something, they might be very intense to show that they need something. If they're hungry, some infants might cry, very strongly, like ah, and some infants will go like ah, or some toddlers, will react very intensely if somebody takes away the block that they were playing with. And some might react more calmly and go, hey. And so each young child is unique in these temperamental aspects. Another trait of temperament can be the quality of mood. Like some infants and toddlers, might be always very positive. There's some children who are always seeing the bright side of things or having positive responses to what happens. Some quality of moods might be more negative. Maybe some children tend to react more negatively with more frustration. Attention span is another thing. Some children might be able to sustain attention and listen for a more prolonged amount of time. Some children, attention might be shorter. They might be like, what? Oh, and then, change their attention. So when we are thinking and talking about challenging behaviors, we need to take into consideration that each infant and each toddler is unique in their essence. They have their own temperamental aspects, and these are just some of the temperamental aspects. There are many others as well, but I'm just giving us a broad perspective into it. And if you really, think about it for a moment, like for yourself. Us as adults, like we're all very different. I have a different temperament than, my sister or my spouse or my mother, or, think about all the people that we're very unique in the way that we respond. So we can't expect all infants and toddlers to respond in the same way when there's a challenging situation going on, or when they're going through something difficult. So keep that in mind when thinking about the child. So another aspect of the child's essence are their stages of psychosocial development. We know that children go through certain stages as they're developing, just as our bodies develop. When we're infants, we can't crawl because we don't have the muscles yet. And as we start developing all the muscles and the coordination, we start learning to crawl, and eventually we can walk, and eventually we can run. Similarly, we go through certain stages of social emotional development, and we need to take this in consideration when we think about challenging behaviors. So with infants, one theory of psychosocial development is that infants, they're going through a stage where they're trying to learn to trust the world. And by this, we mean that, infants are born and they completely need us. They completely need us as the adults to take care of them. They can't survive without us. They need us to feed them, to clothe them, to give them protection, to give them emotional support, just to be there for them. They would not survive without us. And so a lot of our role as caregivers is to help support the infant in this social development stage, on helping them develop trust by responding to their needs. The more we respond to what they need physically and emotionally and psychologically, more they develop this sense of trust, that they can trust the world. If we miss opportunities of responding to what they need, a child might develop, what's called from this theory, mistrust. Mistrusting the world, mistrusting the environment. And we don't want that. We want children to really feel that we're here for them and that they can trust us. Another, as children start transitioning and growing and becoming toddlers, they go through another psychosocial stage, which is called autonomy versus shame. So, what happens, infants, when they depend on us quite a bit, but then as they start becoming toddlers, they start walking and, moving more around, and then they're developing more language. And so they speak to us more, and they tell us what they need with their words. And, before, if they wanted to go and, if they wanted some food, they would cry when they were infants. That was their best way to communicate with us. Now, as they're going into toddlerhood, they can actually walk and go and, maybe grab that apple and take a bite of that apple. So they're developing autonomy. Autonomy means that I'm starting to do things on my own. I don't have to depend always on somebody else. So young children, toddlers, they really have this need of learning how to be much more independent and doing things because they want to and they need it. And so for us as caregivers to really respond to this need, we need to support this autonomy. to give toddlers the opportunity to execute and practice this sense of, I can do by myself and I want to do by myself. And I may need your help, caregiver, and actually need your help a lot. Please help me, but I want to be given that opportunity. So when we think about challenging behaviors in toddlers, think about how much are we really helping support this autonomy? Are any of these challenging behaviors coming out from the need of the child to want to practice more the sense of autonomy? Am I being there for them and supporting that? Could this be one of the reasons why some of these challenging behaviors are coming out? So really think about the world from the toddler's perspective and from their point of view. So let's move on. Another aspect of the child's essence are their needs. Now, not all children have the same needs. Each child has individual things that they need to fully feel happy and fulfilled. Toddlers, have certain physical needs. Infants have other physical needs. Like, some infants, they might have the physical need to move around. We might have a toddler that's really high energy and that they have the physical need of running and using all their muscles and taking out all their energy. There might be some infants who have physical needs, that they get cold really quickly and they like to be a little bit warmer. Or there might be some toddlers who get really warm quickly and they need to feel a little bit cooler. So really understanding, what does the toddler need physically and emotionally? Some infants or toddlers might need more of our support. They might need us to be there more with them. They might have the need for us to express more positive emotions and to give them more nurture. Some children might have the emotional need of being with more children. Some might like to be more by themselves. What do children need emotionally in each moment? Then there are different cognitive needs too. There might be some children who are very curious about certain things around the house, that they really want to explore it. And we want to be able to be responsive to that need of exploration and play. Some children might be speaking faster than others. Their language development might be going faster. Some might be going slower and are not able to express their needs verbally. So we need to be able to be very perceptive of their nonverbal cues of what these needs might be. So all of these are aspects of the child's essence that might trigger challenging behaviors. So really, when you're looking at a challenging behavior that a young child is exhibiting, think about what is it that they might need, that's the reason why we're seeing this behavior being exhibited. What are they trying to communicate to me through the challenging behavior? What is their need? Another element of the child's development is their essence. Is their interests. Each individual person's essence is interested in different things. Just think about yourself even. Some of you might have a lot of interest in nature, in animals or in technology or in cooking or in bird watching. We all have our interests. Young children do too. Infants and toddlers already have their innate preferences and things that some children are much more visual, some are much more kinesthetic, they like to move. Some children are more auditory, they like to listen to sounds, they're really into music and hearing sounds surrounding them. Some children love touching and feeling the environment around them. Some children might be more inclined to exploring books or to exploring blocks or to exploring pots and pans or anything that's around in the environment. And so we really need to be attuned to what do the children, what does the infant and toddler like? What are they interested in? How can I expose them to experiences that are more attuned to their innate interests? And by doing so, we're really meeting that child's need. and that interest. A lot of challenging behaviors could also come out of the lack of us being sensitive to these interests that they may have, and us not really responding to what they want to do and explore and do. Now, let's talk about the child's environment. Let's talk a little bit about the environment, because that also has a huge effect on the social emotional development and challenging behaviors. Like you see on this picture, like this child has a certain environment where there might be a little bit of a challenge or danger there. So let's talk about, what are some aspects of the environment that could help trigger challenging behaviors, and how can we provide support taking that into consideration? So one of the most important things of the child's environment is their family. The family where they are born into and are surrounded by. And every single family is unique. Every single family. We might have families whose structure is just one parent. We might have families where the family includes grandparents and siblings. We might have family structures where we have multiple families living together. It's so varied, and also families live through different social economical factors. Some families are going through poverty. Some families are going through difficulties, especially now what we're going through, the pandemic with COVID-19. We're seeing so many families who are being affected economically, losing jobs, businesses being affected. I mean, just imagine the stress level that we're going through right now. Other aspects that might be affecting the child's behavior and social emotional development might be life events or changes like the pandemic right now. Or some children might be, experiencing that their parents are getting separated or divorced, or some children are going through immigration. They've just immigrated into a new country. The families don't know anything about living in this country. They're confused, they're stressed. We might have situations where families can't be together for a certain reason, where young children can't visit their grandparents right now, where we're socially distanced because of what we're going through. Also, different families have different support systems. Like some families have more of an extended support group. They might have their cousins or siblings who are there to help each other. Some might be totally alone. Some families might have more community organizations that are there for them. Some might not. So all of this might be affecting some of the challenging behaviors that we see in infants and toddlers. There's another really huge aspect to the environment, which is culture. Each family has their own culture. And cultures, when I speak about culture, it's above and beyond, just like festivities or traditions or foods you eat. I'm talking about, your belief systems, your values. What do you value? What is the most important thing for you? Culture also has to do with expectations, behavioral expectations. Different cultures have different expectations that they have of young children. In some cultures, they don't expect toddlers, to speak up during meals. And in other cultures, it's like, speak everything you want. Different cultures will express emotions in their own unique way. Some cultures will express, for example, affection through physical hugs and kisses. Other cultures might show their signs of affection through respect and calm voice and being there for the child and being, using kind words. So, our infants and toddlers are being brought up by these systems, which are very different. And so for us to really try to understand and support a young child who's exhibiting challenging behaviors, we need to also think about their family. And what is the family going through? What is the situation what's happening? What are the expectations with the family's culture? Which they're huge. So I really want to invite you to take the time to pause. And when you do, when there is a child, an infant or toddler that you see with challenging behaviors, think about, I wonder, what's going on in the family. I wonder how the fact that we're hearing all these negative news constantly on the TV and internet and through social media, all these negativity, and the families talking about it. I wonder if this is connected. How could this be connected to the child who's exhibiting challenging behaviors? And when we see it from that perspective, we can probably be more strategic and intentional on how we respond and give that result. So another aspect of that is affecting is, the major community, all the caregivers and other caregivers, not only the family. We know sometimes the caregivers could be family, friends, and neighbors, or a home-based program, an early Head Start program in our community, the community that the child grows up in, their neighbors, their associations, our communities, our counties, our states, our nation. All of these aspects are also affecting young children. The way the support systems that are involved, maybe some children right now at home have their early Head Start teacher who's able to call the parents and, give them some support over the phone. Like, that support system is so strong and powerful and amazing. But some families might not have that support system and of that community or from other caregivers, and might be trying to figure it out on their own. Different communities and organizations and caregivers go through their own changes and challenges, like programs being shut down, like right now, a lot of programs are not open. We are under a lot of stress also. Organizations are under stress. We're adapting. We're learning from this experience. We're learning about online learning. We're learning how to make a good use of our time. And so all of this is affecting one way or another a child's behavior. Also, the culture. The general culture of other caregivers and the communities affect young children. So for example, there might be some behavioral expectations at home for toddlers, but maybe caregivers have other expectations, other cultural expectations on how they want children to behave when they're in that environment. So we also we have to, think about how young children are balancing the act, these balls of, well, this is what we do at home, but this is what we do in my home-based program or in my center-based program. It's like, wait, this world's kind of interesting. There might be some disconnects, and young children are trying to make sense out of all of it. So imagine us as adults, how much we go through our lives and adapting. Young children go through it too. And they're listening and hearing and being affected by it all. So really, young children don't only exhibit challenging behaviors because they choose to. Really, there's a bigger need. There's something behind a challenging behavior. It is communicating us something that they need. And us as the caregivers, we want to be very prepared on how do we support them. So just to summarize what we've spoken about up to now, challenging behaviors, can be affected by the child's essence, their temperament, what they're going through, their stages of development, their particular needs and their interests. Their environment is affecting them, the family, the greater community, the greater culture. And so for us to support young children who are exhibiting challenging behaviors, we need to understand the unique needs. What does the infant need? What does the toddler need? Understand what is the infant and toddler communicating through that challenging behavior, because this challenging behavior is saying something to us. And us, we need to try to understand it. And we want to intentionally respond to that need. And we want to be proactive to responding to that need, so that next time that we see that that need is coming up, that we respond to it even before it becomes a problem. So let's talk about these strategies more specifically. Let's dive a little bit deeper on what can I, the caregiver, do to support my infants and toddlers when they're exhibiting challenging behaviors. So one, it's really key to connect emotionally. The more we connect with the infant and toddler emotionally, or the more we'll be attuned to them. You know, we really want to develop a relationship to really know them. Every time, you know, look at your infant, get the infant that you're supporting, get to know their temperament. You know, get to know, like, whoa, he's really active, or whoa, you know, he's really calm, or whoa, he's very, you know, explosive, or oh, he's, you know, responds different. There isn't a right or wrong with temperament. Each temperament has its pluses and minuses. You know, children who are very energetic can use that energy to create and to make wonderful things and to be passionate about their families, you know, but they could also use that excessive energy in a negative way if we're not there to support them. And so, you know, we need to know that temperament and know, how do I channel and support that child's temperament and who they are in a positive way, so that they truly develop their essence, who they are, in a positive way. Also discover the child's unique interests. The more we know what they're interested, even infants, if you really, you know, if you put two objects in front of an infant, you might put a ball and you might put, you know, a book. If you really look closely, even for a non-mobile infant, they might be staring at that, you know, ball, and you're like, ooh, it seems like she really likes that ball. Let me get that ball closer to her. And that infant's like, ooh, the ball, I love this ball. But if, you know, if I give them, you know, the book, and they're like, I really didn't want the book, you know, and they start crying, ah, and what they really wanted was that ball, and they keep looking at the ball. You know, I want to be able to really be attuned to that interest and respond to it. And that really, you know, helps lower these challenging behaviors. We also want to be really attuned to all the needs, the emotional, the cognitive, the physical needs. You know, are they cold? Are they uncomfortable? Are they hungry? You know, sometimes a toddler can start, you know, getting really angry and anxious and negative just because they were thirsty. That all they needed was, you know, a drink of water. Even us as adults, you know, think about it. Sometimes, you know, you might feel a little anxious or angry, and you think about, like, hey, when was the last time I, you know, ate? I think I skipped lunch. Maybe that's why I'm feeling this way. So really being attuned to what do they need will help reduce challenging behaviors. You know, providing safety, comfort, affection. Letting infants and toddlers know, I'm here for you. You can feel safe with me. I'm here for you to feel comfortable. And when infants and toddlers feel safe and comfortable and loved, really their essence is much more open and relaxed and ready to be and explore and develop. This is a key point also, us, the environment, the caregivers. We want to take care of ourselves. The more we take care of ourselves, the better we'll be able to support challenging behaviors in young children. So be more aware of, how are your emotions? You know, how are you feeling? Are you feeling a little stressed or a little anxious? You know, what can help you feel better? Take care of your own well-being. You know, find ways to manage your stress. You know, it might be that you need to stretch a little, you know, to put a song that you really like that makes you feel positive and good, you know, to eat a really healthy breakfast, to talk over the phone with your sister who really listens to you and you know, that is there to support you. Learn how to manage your stress and take care of yourself so that you feel well. The better you feel, the more you'll be able to create joy and well-being for you and the child. The more that you take care of yourself, you'll be able to take care of the needs of the infant and toddler and to respond to those needs before challenging behaviors come up. So this is key. Another element, other strategies, the environment, in which young children are, try to create a calm and soothing environment. If I'm in a home environment and the TV's on, maximum volume with all the negative news going on, and then somebody else is listening to the radio and there's like this upbeat music, and then, there's chaos and everybody's running around, and it's, stressful physical environment, the young child will be affected by it. You may see many more challenging behaviors. So even just by, saying, hey, wait a minute. Okay, this is where I have the infant. This is where I have the toddlers. How can I make this environment much more calm, soothing? How can I make it safe, clean, comfortable, tidy? When the room is much more in order, it really starts affecting that child. When the room is all messy and everything is around, imagine the toddler will go and grab everything and want to throw everything around. And this is another aspect. We have to create the environments that are child-friendly, child-ready. So toddlers, something really key in their development as they're developing this sense of autonomy is that they really like to do, and they don't like being said no. And so when you create this physical environment, think about, how do I make sure that everything that is accessible to the toddler is okay for them to access? If there's something that I don't think is safe or good for them to access, put it somewhere else where they can't reach it. Be proactive as you're setting up your environment. You also want to create a consistent daily routine. If your day is like without structure and it's like, oh yeah, we just do whatever at any moment, and toddlers, will be very confused, and they're like, what's going on? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And we will see many more challenging behaviors because of the lack of a daily routine. So, set up a time of what you do in the early morning. What do you generally do at the mid-morning, midday, early afternoon, late afternoon, evening? And keep it consistent. Keep it communicating. Bring in natural elements into your environment. Make it harmonious. Make it a place where infants and toddlers feel calm and soothed, and it's a place where they really want to be. So let's move on. Let's talk more specifically about toddlers now. I remember I told you that toddlers are developing much more of their autonomy. So we want to support that autonomy, this sense of I can do. And we want to give toddlers activities and a lot of opportunities for play. Young children learn from play and free exploration. Within limits, of course, we can set up the parameters, but within those parameters to allow that free exploration. Also helping toddlers develop self-care and self-responsibility. Like if toddlers, they want to learn how to open the faucet, and they want to learn how to wash their hands, and they want to learn how to serve themselves their food, and they want to learn how to be part of things. They want to help wipe the windows, when they see you wiping and cleaning windows. They want to, because they're developing as human beings who say, hey, look, I can do too. And so giving them much more ability and responsibility and focus on what to do. If you just let toddlers, wander and be aimlessly, you will see challenging behaviors go up. And so we really want to be sensitive to this aspect of their development. Another element of developing their essence is helping toddlers learn about behavior. So toddlers, they're not born knowing what they're supposed to do. The infants aren't either. Like, they don't know what are the rules of the game here. And we're here to help them learn the rules of the environment, what we expect of them, what our culture expects of them. And we want to do it in a positive way. And, us as adults, sometimes it could take a long time to learn something new. Well, it's also true for young children. Toddlers, they're not, the first time we tell them, hey, when we're inside, we walk, we use our walking feet. And when we go to our yard, it's okay to run out there and run freely. It'll take a while them to learn that we expect that inside we walk. And it's going to take a lot of us, the caregivers, to remind them that inside we walk. And so we want to communicate and constantly be reminding in positive ways the positive behaviors that we are helping them learn and acquire. And we want to model it too. So, if you have an expectation that inside we walk, us as adults, maybe we should avoid running or using like loud voices. If we want children to speak, in an inside voice, a toddler to speak quietly, well, we, the adults, also want to make sure that we're modeling that behavior. And so when you see a challenging behavior, a behavior that you're not expecting, think about how are you communicating it to the child of what they are supposed to be doing, and how are we saying in a positive way. So something that I say sometimes for toddlers, the word no is a really hard word to understand, but they understand more yes. So when you say, don't run, they're like, what? Like they hear more, run, woohoo, run. But if we say, walk, the toddler hears walk, and they're like, oh, yeah, walk. Oh, cool. Okay, I'll walk. And so, let them know in positive words ahead of time. If you're expecting to keep your hands to yourself, instead of saying, don't hit, your cousin, or don't hit your friend, say, remember, hands to ourselves. We keep our hands to our bodies. There we go. And and then when we see that they're playing with with their cousin or their other friend, we're like, ooh, look at you, Maria. You're keeping your hands to yourself. Wow, you're really learning quickly. And so they need us to tell them what are the positive behaviors that we expect, to remind them. They're not going to learn it the first time we say it. They're not going to learn it the second time, nor the third, nor the fourth. It will take consistent reminding. So focus on the positive of what you do expect. And when you see, that a challenging behavior might come up because you see that they need something, be proactive about it. Try to remind them the positive expected behavior before it develops into a problem or a challenging behavior. So let's continue. What happens when the challenging behavior is there? It's like, oh no, we see that challenging behavior, the toddler again, was pulling their friend's hair, or was biting their sibling. Try to understand, what's behind that challenging behavior. Where does it come from? What do they need? Remember, it might be from their temperament, from their needs, from their interests. It might be something happening in the family, in the community, in the society, in the physical environment. Maybe it's getting really noisy right now, and this is starting to affect that child's temperament or ability to self-regulate. So try to understand what triggers it. And if it's a challenging behavior, that recurs, try to observe, when does it tend to happen? What time of the day am I seeing this challenging behavior? What triggers it? What's happening right before the challenging behavior comes up? And it might take a while for you to keep observing this challenging behavior, but take mental notes, or if you do have Post-it paper like I have all over my house, take a little note. Every morning before we have breakfast, Susan, starts biting Jason. And it's interesting, it happens always before breakfast. What's triggering it, what's going on, what's happening in the environment. And based on your observations and what you observe over time, try to think, ways to respond and to be proactive before the problems come out, and work together as a team with other caregivers. So you don't have to do this on your own. If you see a recurring challenging behavior, work with your other colleagues, caregivers, co-workers, family members. If it's at home, with your partner, with the other family members, say, hey, let's all work together to really address this consistent or returning challenging behavior. Let's talk about it as a team. Because it's for the well-being of the child. It's not to make my life easier or my life better. Really, it's about helping the child develop fully, and for them, their essence to flourish and grow and develop in a positive way. So talk about, when is it happening? When do we see it occurring? What could be the trigger? What could we do to avoid those triggers? How can we assure or provide what the toddler or infant needed at that time? Let's work on it together as a team. So in a nutshell, we spoke quite a bit about, understanding challenging behaviors from the child's essence, from their perspective, from their point of view, not from my point of view. I am like an adult and I can process information. Young children, they're just learning about the world, and they're seeing things differently, and they're communicating to us, the adults, in a different way. So we want to be very sensitive to understand that child's temperament. Not everybody's going to respond the same to stress. Some toddlers, when they're going through stress, might be like very emotional. Some might become very timid and quiet. Also look at challenging behaviors that are being expressed through being quiet or retreated. So not only the expressive ones are the but also look at those quiet needs that might not be being expressed externally, but they're still there. Take into consideration the environment that children are going through difficulties, stressors, especially now with our global pandemic, and we need to create an environment that's going to be positive for them, that's going to help reduce stress for children and stress in us, the caregivers, so that we're really there to meet the needs as a team. We don't need to do it by ourselves. We can support from others, get support from others. So with that said, we have a few minutes left, and I want to leave it for questions that you might have. And I'm going to open up for Fernando to share anything that's been coming up during this time that we've been together.
Great. Thank you, Erika. We do have quite a bit of questions here, so let me go through them. So one of the questions, I guess one of the easiest questions to answer is, folks are interested in getting a copy of these PowerPoint slides. Will we be able to get a copy from you so we can put them up on our website and share with our attendees?
Yes, I will share a PDF of these slides. Yes.
Great. Rocio asks, how can teachers make returning to school as comfortably as possible for the children?
Now, that's a great question, Rocio. So yes, we will need, to be very responsive to the emotional needs for children. Really not, giving, connecting with the infants and toddlers, having eye contact, using their names, using soft tones of voices, giving love, affection, making it an enjoyable experience, having your structure, your daily routine structure, reminding them of our structure for toddlers, reminding them proactively of what it is that we do during the day, having more open-ended experiences for them and not so structured experiences. So giving them that opportunity to play and explore, and being very proactive in reminding again our classroom expectations and guiding them during those expectations, and being very patient and emotionally supportive.
Excellent. So the next question asks, can this also be integrated into our young 3 and 4-year-olds?
Yes, absolutely. These strategies also apply to 3 and 4-year-olds. There are other particular strategies for 3 and 4-year-olds because we know that at that age, their cognitive development has grown quite a bit. And for preschoolers, like 3 and 4-year-olds, they have a lot of a need of understanding the why behind things. So I would add on, asking children the why, like, why do you think we have the expectation of, you walking indoors, and why do you think, it would be unsafe to run? What would happen? And triggering and connecting much more to the cognitive and helping understand the why with preschoolers, also involving preschoolers more in creating your behavioral expectations so that they feel that they're part of that process, because having a lot of initiation and leadership is key for that older age. But yes, all of these are applicable, and plus helping them make more of that cognitive and explicit connections.
Excellent. Someone asked, how can one have the parents get on board with expectations?
Great question. Yeah, so one thing, we're human beings, and feeling connected, when we feel connected with another adult, and we feel that they care about us and we trust each other, we're much more open to talking about things that might be a little bit more difficult. So establishing a good relationship with families is key, for anything to develop, especially when things can get hard, like challenging behaviors, for example. So I really recommend investing the time to develop a good relationship between teachers and caregiver and family members, for you to get to know each other as human beings, to know each other's interests, to know about your culture, to know about your stories, and just like how you know a friend, a good friend, to get to know them that way. And as this relationship deepens, you can have conversations about like your classroom behavioral expectations. For toddlers, you might have the expectations that we sit around the table when we eat, and we have the expectations to keep our hands to ourselves and not grab other children's food. But maybe at home, they have other expectations, and they maybe they all eat, they do more family style, and they grab food from each other. I don't know, each culture, each family is different. So communicating with families about, this is our program level culture and expectations. I'd love to learn about your family and culture and behavioral expectations. And then how can we work together to really help support the child develop, knowing how to manage their own behavior and learning how to adapt to our expectations as a culture overall. Great questions.
Great. So we have time for a few more questions. What are some activities to share with the parents while the children are at home to help with challenging behaviors?
Great, yes. So that's a great question. So one, I would really recommend, if we are, a teacher, an early child educator, and we are speaking with families over the phone, which I highly encourage, where they're a big support system, I would highly recommend asking parents to try to establish a daily routine that is consistent. And so that the toddler knows what's expected during the day, and to make sure that the toddler knows what it is that they're supposed to be doing during that routine. So, if it's a breakfast time and we're getting breakfast ready and my toddler is, walking around and they're exploring, I might say, hey, would you help me, rinsing these fruits, give them a job, give them a task. Can you help me put these napkins on the table? And, toddler's gonna be like, ooh, and then, when we're done with breakfast, maybe giving them an activity to do, maybe like, oh, now why don't we go and play with these materials I put on the table, and you might put, some Play-Doh, or you might put some crayons, or you might put some materials. Give them an activity to be busy, to be doing, to be learning, because if they don't have any task at hand or any activity, and if it's play-based, it's the best, play-based activities. If they don't have any activity, we might see more challenging behaviors because they don't have anything to do and they're just bored. So they'll just go and, pull their brother's hair or something. So guiding families and setting a good daily routine, and guiding them and having ideas of play-based exploration experiences that the toddlers can be engaged in during the different times of the day. And you can also share a link of this webinar.
Yes. So then the next question asks, how do you plan to assist the emotional children to caregivers when going back to school?
The caregiver is emotional. You mean like the adults?
Yes, sorry, that's the way the question came in. I just read it.
Yes. So, we need to be very connected. We're going through something together as a humanity, and we're all experiencing it. So the more that all of us, the adults, that we talk virtually or the phone, not, right now we're doing physical distancing, but not necessarily communicating distancing. We still want to talk with each other, talk about the feelings that we're going through, talk about the stresses, something also really key when you're having a difficulty or stress, convert it into a question. If you're very tense about, how you're going to get groceries this week because you don't know, you're not feeling that well, and, you need to get food somehow into the house, to think about, convert that difficulty or stressor into a question and make it like, I wonder how I could get the groceries we need at home this week. And by converting it into a question, we start innately to come up with possible solutions to that stressor or that problem. And that it might be like, hey, maybe, my nephew or, can drop off some food. Maybe I can give him some of the list because I'm not feeling well at all. And I know he has something to cover his mouth and I know he can go out, to think about our problems or stressors in terms of how do I solve it as well? How do I communicate it? How do I get support? And to be there for each other and connected. And the more we're there for each other, the better we're all going to be off, during this. And we will be. We're here together now, this hour, getting the support with each other. We're totally interconnected in this virtual world and space, getting support.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Erika. We do have quite a bit of questions still, but given that we're almost to our hour, I just want to make sure I have the opportunity to thank everybody for joining the session. Thank you, Erika, for your time and knowledge, for a wonderful presentation. I just want to address a few things that came in through the chat. And thanks everybody for submitting your feedback and your comments. I know the majority of you are asking for the certificate of participation, and we're aware that our website is experiencing heights amount of traffic for people trying to go in and not only get the certificate for this session, but for any other sessions that we have hosted. So we'll do our very best. Send us an email and we can send the certificate directly to you. And that email is going to be Head Start R9, the number 9, at region number 9 hsa.org. You will find that email in the confirmation you receive when you register for this session. Again, it's Head Start R9 at region number 9 hsa.org. And if you send us an email, we'll be happy to send you the certificate that you need. I know that Erika mentioned that she will be kind enough to share these slides with us, so we will put those up on our website as well. And that just a reminder that this session was recorded, and we will make it available on demand within 24 hours for everybody who was unable to join the live session, as well as anybody who wishes to rewatch it. So thanks again, Erika, for your time. We really appreciate it, and thanks everybody for your for joining in, for your patience as we navigate these times. I hope everybody has a great rest of your day, and I hope to see you on the next one. Thanks again, Erika.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your hard work and everything you do for young children.